Sun will shine. It's automatic. Na, 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 na. Oh, I'm so sorry. Hello there, and welcome to Daniel's Infinite Playlist. And this is the classic album review section where we basically take a look back on albums that have been released in the past. And today we're going to review the excellent debut album from Utada Hikaru, which is called First Love. And for those of you who don't know who Utada Hikaru is, well, Utada Hikaru is one of the most successful artists from Japan. She was actually born in the United States and spent a lot of her time there. Both of her parents are famous musicians, both in Japan and in the United States. And some of you guys may know her voice from, from singing on tracks in the Kingdom Hearts games. And she, well, more than that, she has done so many great things. And this album, First Love, is actually a very important album for Japanese music history because it is one of the most sold albums, both in Japan and outside of Japan, with over 10 million album sales, which is just so cool. Anyways, how is it to listen to this album? Well, it's a bit like this. I'm going to show you the CD unboxing now, and here you see the album cover art, which is a face of Utada Hikaru herself, and I think this is a really nice cover for the whole music, because it shows this really, clear-eyed and very young artist on the brink of stardom. And then if we open it, it's actually just very simple. The CD is actually from the 1990s, in 1999, just that year, but it's managed to keep its glossy sheen. And this CD is also from Japan. I bought it from there. So yeah, here you see there's the album insert. It has some lyrics. It's very clean throughout. With pictures of her in different states or moods. And then you see here is the thank you message. That's actually very sweet. And yeah, well, the thank you message actually talks about her, continuing her parents' business, which is music. So yeah. Oh, and this also got the obi strip, but it's inside of the case to shield it. Alright, so a little bit of musical background on this album. Utada Hikaru had actually been trying to, break through as an artist a few times before of this debut album. She actually was in a band with her parents, both of her parents, that was called Cube 3, or they were called U3, sorry, and then they changed their name to Cube 3. And then they made an album that was mostly centered around Utada Hikaru and R&B, instrumentation. That album was actually debuted in both Japan and in the United States. However, the album was a commercial failure, and then Utada Hikaru signed to another record label, which is called... okay, I don't remember the record label, but she was signed to a bigger record label, and they actually told her to write music in Japanese, like more in Japanese. And so she spent like a lot of time, even though she was like a native Japanese speaker, she needed some time to just adjust her lyrics and make them both in English and in in Japanese. That's also one of the main features of the album, is that she changes from English to Japanese, and it's a very nice thing to hear. And then of course she debuted her album, and it was an instant success, and it managed to sell a lot. So yeah, just like, you know. So yeah, sorry for the long tangent there. Anyways, how is this album musically? Well, musically, this album is a mishmash of genres, but I'd say it's more grounded in the R&B type of sound. And the mishmash of genres I tell you about is, well, she goes through dance music, for example, like in the excellent song Moving On Without You, to little more, how do you say, futuristic R&B, like in the song Automatic, or In My Room, to some really, how do you say, Janet Jackson Control era, how do you say, jack swing R&B on the song Painted Black. And it's through all of these moods that she tries to concoct a seriously beautiful, how do you say, vision on how it is to be young and in love, because it goes through all of the moods. And musically, it's just a very rich album. But sometimes the album can sometimes get a little bit too, how do you say, traditional in its own R&B recordings. Like, for example, I wish she would have explored more of the dance music on Moving On Without You, but instead we're left with, like, how do you say, 5 really good R&B songs, and then just a few other songs that sound a little bit too traditional R&B, that and some ballads too that actually make the album a little bit, how do you say, mishmushy. But you know, the standout tracks that I've just told you about, they actually make this album so much, and you can actually see an artist, you know, like developing her, how do you say, her unique sound. And I think that that she could have done with a little bit more exploring, you know, on these more high-tech sounds, because the other songs haven't aged so well, like especially the ballads, which I don't like so much. Anyways, how is this album lyrically? Well, lyrically, this album touches on all the facets of love, of young love, of feeling, you know, very, how do you say, very in love, but also, you know, like heartbreak, insecurities. And I think I saw an interview with Utada Hikaru where she actually explained that many people actually think that they are closely drawn from her own private life, and she is a very private singer, but she also likes to write about that feeling, even though she hadn't experienced it herself, like in that moment. So she's a very universal lyricist. Oh, and that's also a given that I'm that I should have told you about, that she writes all of her own lyrics, and she does a lot of the production as well, which is really cool, and also quite unheard of when it's about, you know, Japanese singers. And that's also what you can see in Utada Hikaru's own stance on Japanese music industry, is that she didn't want to be a Japanese idol, you know, because Japanese idols are so manicured, and they how do you say, they basically have no artistic control of their own music, and that's what she wanted. So you could have seen her, like, back then, and she was always saying no to talent agencies and all of that, you know, who wanted to have her because she is very talented, and she always told them no because, well, that's not for her. So yeah, what do I give this album? Well, I give it an 8 out of 10. It is a solid debut album with, unfortunately, a little bit too many traditional tracks that kind of clutter it. You know, sometimes you go through these really high energy and exuberant tracks, like in the first 3 and the fifth track, and then the album just goes down in a mood that's just very, how do you say, that you feel kind of like stepping on bubblegum, because it's just so it's just so mushy, and you feel that that the album just doesn't pick itself up after that. I mean, it has a good ending, but it it appears as if they saved like the best songs for the first, and then, you know, just did some fillers on the, you know, on like the ending of the album. But otherwise, this is a very memorable debut album, which shows an artist that is, how do you say, just carving her way into the future. And you can see why also it was an album that sold so much for its time, and especially how that artist Utada Hikaru has, you know, evolved with her own artistry. And I really recommend you to listen to this album because it has some really good tunes that I think a lot of especially Western R&B stars should listen to, because it's just really good and excellently produced, and the lyrics as well, they're very, how do you say, they're very nice. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this review. As always, I'm going to put the artist links down below, and if you really like this video, then please like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. As always, I'm going to be back with new album reviews every Wednesday, and classic album reviews every Saturday. So yeah, tag along for the ride, for this musical ride, because I'm going to review a lot more albums. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this review. See you next week. Enjoy music, enjoy life, people. Vi ses. Hej då!